Today on What Went Wrong, blah, 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 blah. Cue the music. Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and throughout all the films that I've made, there has been music in every one of them. And it's kind of been a tough chore sometimes with music. Today we're going to talk about sort of choosing music. Now, you've actually done a little bit of scoring.
Harm returned sevenfold. I think mayhaps they had more than their seven. But who am I to disagree with God?
You'll know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
and you're talking about emotions. You when you were doing some music, you were able to picture in your head, oh, this would go good, fill in the blank. So you at least have that grasp on it.
Yeah.
Now this comes courtesy, and we'll give a nice shout out to her, Ryan's daughter. She had mentioned something about some questions about scoring and music and film.
It's important.
So that's we'll give a shout out to her. And,
How you doing, girl?
Hey, how you doing? For me, music has always been the foundation of my films. I mean, you can probably remember driving around with me, and I've got music going on, and I'm thinking about scenes. You start talking like, shut up, I'm killing Joey right now. Leave me alone. Then I'm driving.
Oh, killing Joey. Yeah, okay.
And I always have music in my head, and the one of the toughest times of my life, or turning point in my life, was during Blue Moon, when I had all this music, and I choreographed everything to music in my head, and I had these great songs that I was going to play, and that was really where I started realizing, because movies before, I'd put Right Here Waiting in, and I'd put some techno in from the Mortal Kombat soundtrack or whatever, and I'd just use it freely because it wasn't going anywhere. It was just for us.
Yeah.
And then Blue Moon, it was sort of like, okay, we're going to try to sell this before we actually knew what it would turn out to be.
Right.
But it was like, okay, we're going to do this, and I'm going to have this music in. I even had music in the background of scenes that were playing, when we were recording, so I couldn't get it out, and things like that. And that was when I started thinking about having to, okay, I've got to replace this music. And especially in the late 90s, I didn't have access to any kind of royalty-free music or anything like that. I think when I was working at Denver Community Television, we had some royalty-free music on some 3/4 inch that we were able to loop and stuff like that. But it was garbage, elevator music stuff anyways. But the time that I said I'm no longer going to choreograph music in my head or use copyrighted music to guide scenes was Tag in 2006. That 2006, 2005, and it was the scene where Ty and Amanda dance, and right before they're going to kill one of the Capellios. And it was supposed to be this really cool little scene where her character of Leslie kind of opens up to Hal, and Hal's, we see a little bit of zaniness to him. And I had in my head, and I even played it on set so that they could dance to it, was Starry-Eyed Surprise by Paul Orkenbach or something like that. Okelhoven, I can't remember.
Ockenhoven. That's his name, Ockenhoven.
Paul Ockenhoven. And then I got into post, and I did that with some other things, but I was able to replace the music, and I, no matter what I did, could not find music that fit that. So it's always been one of my least favorite scenes to this day because of that music didn't encapsulate that scene. And that's not to say anything about the performances. They were great. The chemistry was there, and it was really cool to watch them to perform that. But because the music didn't fit, and it just didn't have anything that lived up to it, it was just a tough call. So I've always tried. I've been inspired by music, but never edited beyond that point.
I get it.
And that happened recently in Lady Lawman, where she had her hero moment when she was chasing down Matt and then she shot me. I did use the music that I had dreamed of that scene to, and I couldn't use it. And everything I tried to find, I couldn't find a replacement. So I actually had to pay some money to go and get it scored specifically for that scene. So music is exceptionally important, and especially in my films. I mean, most of the titles of my films are named after the songs that inspired the movies.
That was back in the day. That was always the thing. It was right here waiting. It was like, oh, I wonder what this is about. Yeah. You know, and
Blue Moon,
Turn to Innocence. Yeah, those were all. And when we were kids, and growing up in your film things. I mean, every time we went anywhere, music was always playing, and you would have these ideas about things. I did the same thing. I mean, there's this one of my favorite Christmas songs is "Christmas Eve Sarajevo." Mm-hmm. Okay, because I'd been to the Balkans, and seeing what happened there in Sarajevo. Where they at one point had the the Olympics were there, and then. That was in '84. The Olympics were in Sarajevo, and then 12 years later, it's a civil war, and the city's a shambles, And having gone to those places, but the listening to that, and I would, whoever I was riding with, usually it was at night because that's how we get, and whenever we were driving somewhere at night, that was always when our biggest ideas would come up, and we'd be like talking about this stuff. Living where we lived on the northeast side of Houston, and we'd always be usually on the south side of Houston. That's where all the good restaurants were, and we would drive up and around. And so we had a good 30 minutes of darkness. This is before there was all those lights everywhere. I mean, once you get off the loop, it was darkness for like 20 minutes, just completely driving up there. And so you're kind of, except for like the lights on the side of the road and the buildings, you're basically dark. And you're driving along and one little light. And it was kind of surreal, but it led to a lot of contemplative moments. And one of the ones was Christmas Eve Sarajevo that happened to me later, and I was thinking, it was like as it starts off, and it's the the different songs come in and the explosions happen, because that's what I related it to was it's a beautiful Christmas song, but it's about a city that's it's in shambles, and so music has always been one of those things that I could see. I've never been very good, this may be hard for some people to believe, but I've never been very good at expressing emotions. I can talk. I got my grandpa's gift of gab. I can talk like a son of a bitch, but I can't always emotionally impart, And so one of the things I tell people is like, look, I may not be able to tell you what I think about a certain thing, but I'm going to tell you something, and that's what I think about it, And I would... I was telling one girl, I was trying to tell her something about something. It wasn't going. I was like, okay, when it's really hot outside and it's just everything's sweaty, whatever else. But then you get that like breeze of cold air that comes through just out of nowhere. It's like, oh, that's what I'm talking about. And so people are like, I get that. Music's like that. Music is a story told not through a voice. Not through speaking. It's a story told by the sound, okay? And movies, especially nowadays, but even always, have depended upon that, I don't even need to see anything. When I hear that first note of Star Wars, that da-da-da-da-da-da, everyone knows what that is. Everybody on the planet knows what that is. And you don't even need to get like the whole song. Just get like the first 2 seconds of that song. Everybody knows what it is. Okay, the first 2 seconds of Star Trek, they changed the theme, but that that three note motif, Black Hole. One of my favorite movies, that 7-note motif that they use.
2 notes, Jaws.
Near. Once again, John Williams. We'll talk about John Williams. And of course you have the famous composers, John Williams, James Horner, God rest his soul. And John Barry,
Morricone.
Oh, man. But certain songs, certain pieces of music, certain movies, the music itself is iconic. Terminator, Anvil of Crom from Conan the Barbarian, of course, Star Wars. Star Trek, which they change their theme as they go along with the movies, but there's certain motifs that they keep. Star Trek Next Generation used the exact same music as Star Trek the original movie, or Star Trek the motion picture. Okay, and of course Star Trek the original series had that, that song. I don't know how much I can say it before it's bad, but they had that thing on there. But it also had the boom boom boom, that one little section that's always been in every piece of music that Star Trek does. Horror movies have certain soundtracks. Friday the 13th is that the dee 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 dee, those kind of things. Of course, Jaws with their beard. And so the music itself begins telling the story before anything else is told. And so music is exceptionally important. If you were to play from Empire Strikes Back, the Meteor Chase with circus music, it would change the way things.
Flight of the Bumblebee.
Flight of the Bumblebee. It's like they're flying around. There are certain songs that you could play, that I've played, that I know, that you could use in certain situations that would fit. Okay, but the problem is most of them are pretty well known. Like The Planets, one of my favorite pieces of music of all. Gustav Holst was the man.
Which you hear a lot of in Star Wars. And
you hear a lot of those kind of things. Mars, Jupiter, but I think Mars is my absolute favorite. That I can sing that whole thing because it's open. It's that bump 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 bump, and then that whom whom whum, and you get that kind of the what they call the lifting motif with the lower, and then that the power of the back, and it is the sound of war to so many people, Neptune the Mystic with that weird that kind of music, the way it is, and Jupiter the bum 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 bum, that big loud brash kind of sound. And they have always, big old pieces of music like that, I say old pieces of music, older music, has influenced music of today. Williams, Horner, Barry, some of the most iconic pieces of music written by some of the most iconic composers of our day. And the entire point of it is to tell the story, is to start watching the movie before you see the movie. Because you haven't done anything in Star Wars Episode 4 except listen to the intro and read the scroll before you see a single laser blast. But you're in for something epic. That first hit of music, and I'm sitting there as a kid watching this going, oh, this is intense. Whatever this is intense as I didn't say it as a 4-year-old, but I realized whatever was about to happen was going to be big. Okay? When you are watching a scary movie and the music starts doing that thing, you're like, oh, God. When you're playing a video game, and all of a sudden the music goes, and you're like, oh crap, something's coming up.
Or the music stops.
And the music itself is a way to show the emotion, to show the intensity. Once again, let's look at Star Wars. You've got Luke's theme, Leia's theme, Yoda's theme. You have the Imperial March. And so you have all these things that are telling you what's going on. And watching, I like to watch the reaction videos to The Mandalorian. I haven't actually watched it, but I've watched it all I've watched everything I watch now is through reaction videos. And one of the things they talk about is the music they put in. Because there's one particular point, I think they're talking with Ahsoka Tano, and she's telling the Mandalorian about Yoda. And Yoda's theme comes on. The people watching it, the fans, immediately picked it up. And they're like, oh, they're playing Yoda's theme. And some of these guys, once again, got a little emotional. I understand that. I get emotional at music, too. Yes, I cry at music. Go piss off, because it takes... It's almost like a smell. You can track smells. You can have memories with smells. Sound does that. when you have this emotion that you had as a kid watching Empire Strikes Back and watching Yoda and all of a sudden years later you hear it again and it triggers all of that and all the endorphins and everything do what they're supposed to do. Music is central to the emotion, to the action, to the way you wish your movie to be perceived. You can't do without it.
As an editor, putting that music in, and being an independent filmmaker is a lot different because when you got the big budget, you can make your rough cut, get your picture lock, and then send it off. And so there's your composer. He does it and sends it back, and you start tweaking with that with the composer. But as an independent filmmaker with no money, you have to figure out where you're going to get this music and what you have to choose from. And there are great royalty-free sites. Audio Blocks is going to have a lot of stuff. They've gotten better over the years, but I don't get a whole lot of very powerful cinematic music from them. Especially if I want something with lyrics in it. Not really the place to go. If I want lyrics, I'm going to places like Premium Beats, where I've got a lot of our Origami Pigeons music, which the mischief when your character is appearing in the alley and sit around.
Right.
And I get a lot of use out of that music. And then North Star, which has sort of become Mike and Diane's theme. And then there's other places like Audio Jungle. I saw, and I just got to point this out today. It was for a whiteboard commercial, paint for a whiteboard. Like if you want to turn a wall into whiteboard and everything. And I'm watching the video because I'm like, that would be kind of cool to have a big whiteboard wall somewhere around here because I'm always doodling and everything. And at the end, and it's a commercial that we put on YouTube for their product. And at the end of the commercial, you hear the generic watermark, audio watermark. Music by Audio Jungle. And they do that so that you can't steal their music. And I mean, here's a company that's supposed to be trying to sell, this is music for a commercial that they're advertising. I think even hit the add button. And it ends with music by Audio Jungle or audiojungle.com or whatever. I'm like, you just ripped off this music. And it's in a commercial you're paying money for YouTube to show to people. I was blown away. I was just absolutely blown away. But that's something that I have to explain to my students is making sure that they understand. And when you're a student in the educational environment, you get some leeway of being able to use.
Yeah, because it's not going to be
right. But I try to convince them not to do that anyways.
Yeah.
Because it gets them in the habit of doing that. And you don't want to use the Star Wars music, use the Jaws music, use this without permission and everything. Because when you get out there in the real world, it's going to bite you in the ass if you do.
Mm-hmm. Especially those pieces of property.
Yeah. No, there's one thing that I've done, and I still need to look into the legalities of it. I don't think it's going to bite me too much, but there's a scene in Innocent Saga, chapter 8, and it's the opening scene, one of the open scenes where Jack Hart is solving a crime.
Scott, you're married to Paula.
Chrissy.
Chrissy's married to Paula.
No, I'm married to Chrissy. Ed's married to Paula.
Where I'm letting him go, and Scott Neth is there, and he's got him, and all the suspects are around the table.
Yes. Dan, you were boinking Sarah.
Boinking?
Boinking. Slipping her the salami. Giving her the old one-eyed trouser snake. The yogurt-slinging chunky monkey.
Jack, the point...
Giving her the point. No, wait, the point is...
And he's solving the crime.
Oh, yeah.
You were sleeping with Dan?
No, just once.
Just once?
Maybe twice.
Yeah, they all wind up killing themselves.
Yeah, I remember that. That's one of my favorite scenes.
You're sleeping with my wife, Dan? I thought we were friends.
We are friends. That's why I didn't tell you.
Bastard!
Well, watch that scene, and then go watch, or go listen to the Garth Brooks song, "The Night Will Only Know."
Now, I know what the papers say, that she killed herself. Too many pills. But that ain't the case. Fact is, 2 of you know who killed her. And because of some dirty little secret, you keep your trap shut.
Okay.
Because there's a story, the story of "The Night Will Only Know," was the inspiration for that. Of course, we do it very comedically. It's very, very hokey. But what happened in that song is the crime that Jack Hart is solving. And Garth, if I owe you money, I'll give you whatever I can. But, I think you'll understand that it's just, it was an homage, and I think you'll get a kick out of it. But, another thing, I'd love to use Garth Brooks songs all over the place. But getting away from that, I was talking about getting in the weeds. The students need to understand that you've got to be careful of that kind of stuff. So you go to websites like Audio Block, get your subscription, or Audio Jungle, or if you've got somebody who can lay down vocals, go get a CinemaSins, and they've got a great list of music that you can pay. It's not free, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than the $35,000 someone is going to ask for you for another piece of for one of their copyrighted pieces of music.
Wow.
So you find the best that you can. Sometimes I've got libraries that I've paid for. Dramatic, Western, this, and I'll just pull it. Film Riot and videocopilot.net is another great sites. They have royalty-free music stuff. So then I'll just lay it down, and I'll go into it knowing that this is kind of the sound that I'm looking for.
Right.
And then I'll drop it in the timeline, and I'll listen, and it's like, oh no, something else. Try this one. No. And then eventually you'll get to a point where you're just like, I don't care anymore. Just put it in. And it's just like, okay, it's not great, but it's working. And then there'll be these moments where I really want it to peak and really want it to match the music and be that perfect marriage between audio and visual. And I give myself three of those moments.
Okay.
That if it didn't hit, or I get this moment of, it's not exactly right, but it's good enough. And then it happens again. It wasn't quite there. But on that third one, I throw it. I've got to do it because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not working.
So there's that finding that, and sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes I've got to just go with the best that I can do. But it is heartbreaking sometimes because you have, especially when you've thought up this scene in your head to this particular piece of music,
right? And
now it's not going to happen because you can't have that music.
Right.
But it's also kind of a fun thing to do, to try to find that perfect piece of music.
Kind of like a puzzle.
It is
a puzzle piece.
Yeah, it really is. And then of course, you can pick and choose some of the little things here and there. You edit it down and try to match the beats and whatnot.
Right,
so it's not impossible. But yeah, in terms of music, you've got to. It is the soundtrack of the film, so you are going to be guiding people's emotions with this music. Mm-hmm. And if you're guiding them in the wrong direction, it's going to get confusing because the actors or the audience is seeing one thing on screen, but you're hearing, you've got this dramatic moment of everything flying through the, flying through the asteroid field, mm-hmm. but you got Flight of the Bumblebees playing behind it. It's like, well, I thought this was a serious thing, because you're guiding them with that emotion. So understand that the music is that emotion. It is a tool to guide the audience with their emotions. Mm-hmm. And then you have to also realize you have a limited pool, especially as an independent artist, of what music you can and cannot use. Right. Because, you can have people score, but that's going to be expensive. I mean, especially when you're making a film for less than a few $1,000s, a good composer is going to ask for at least that much to score your entire film.
Jeez. So
it is one of those things. Music is one of the most important things, just like audio is, lighting, sound design, set design. Everything is the most important thing of a movie. But music is another one of those things that is the most important thing in the movie because it guides the emotion.
Well, and the music, I mean, how many times have you bought a soundtrack? And I know, some of my favorite soundtracks is Star Trek, Star Wars. And I can listen to some of these movies I've seen so many times. I can listen to the music and tell what's happening in the movie by the music I'm listening to. Star Trek especially like that. There's at one point where, in Star Trek 2, it's a famous part where the Reliant and the Enterprise are running into each other, and when the Reliant is actually shooting at the Enterprise, and there's this trumpet, blah, 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 there's this little thing, but when you hear it, it sounds discordant, and it sounds, it's actually like, oh, geez, because the Enterprise is getting its ass kicked at that specific moment, and that's what you're seeing. I mean, you're seeing it. You're seeing these phasers hit and blow out the side of the Enterprise, and you're seeing it, and you're like, oh my Lord, but you're hearing it too.
Yeah, sometimes the soundtrack is the special effects track as well.
Mm-hmm.
Those timpanis hit right at the right moment, and it becomes part of the scene, and you're hearing the laser blasts inside of the music.
There's talking about Star Wars. There's this one, the asteroid scene. When Han is they can't go to hyperspace, and so he decides to charge into the asteroid scene, and that piece of music doesn't sound like any other piece of music in all of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And the way it starts is this dun 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 dun, that kind of like music where you're like, it's like you're traveling, but something's about to happen. Kind of music where if you hear it, you're like, dum, 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 dum. It could be we're on a U-boat on patrol, or it could be we're galloping across the field about to attack the bad guys, or I'm in a spaceship about to dive into an asteroid field because the Star Destroyers are going to kick my butt, right? And it sets up what's about to happen, and it is an action set piece itself. The music is, and you're right. It is so hard to find that when you can't have. Well, John Williams, whom they're paying millions of dollars to score their movie. Because look at the movies he's done. Mm-hmm. The soundtrack of movies the soundtrack of American cinema for the past, 40 years has been John Williams. Mm-hmm. The greats, Jaws, Star Wars, all the Star Warses, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park. And he's worth the money because the music he's going to make for you is not going to sound like anything else. And what do you do, man? It's John freaking Williams. But he is creating another character for you to have in your show.
Yeah. Well, just like I say about editing, there's always a perfect cut out there.
Yeah.
No matter what you've shot, there is a way that this all comes together. Same thing with music. Mm-hmm. Somewhere out there is that perfect piece of music for your cut. It's just about finding it.